Hello and welcome to France 24. We are here with an exclusive interview with the Prime Minister of Tunisia, Elyes Fakhfakh, who is joining us live from Tunis. Prime Minister, thank you for being with us.
Good morning and a very warm welcome to all your viewers.
Prime Minister, let's start talking about coronavirus. The Health Minister announced on the 11th of May that there were no new cases or no new deaths. Does this mean that Tunisia has overcome the virus?
Well, to tell you the truth, I don't think you can state things quite so clearly. But nevertheless, we are very happy on the progress we've achieved in the last 2 days, where the number of recoveries is over 70%, and we've had no new cases for the last 2 days. But we remain vigilant, seeing what's been going on in other countries where there was a return of the virus. So we remain vigilant. We are targeting easing the lockdown. We're remaining quite attentive to the situation, but the curve is quite good, and I hope they will continue down this path in Tunisia and in everywhere else in the world.
So as you mentioned, you have started to ease the lockdown in Tunisia. On Monday, we saw some shops and businesses were starting to open their doors. So what are your first thoughts and what feedback you're getting from the field about how things are panning out? Or are you seeing signs of concern?
No, to tell you the truth, there's always a period of uncertainty at the beginning of each phase. The first 3 days of last week, we had the time to readapt ourselves, to organize ourselves between the different authorizations to open up, and the things started working in order from last Thursday, but we remain vigilant. For the time being, there's no real reason to worry. The results are good when it comes to recoveries and new cases. But we've been repeating the same message to our fellow citizens to keep the right mindset, to remain vigilant, which has worked. And we can see that everything that's been done for over 2 months now, with this contract of mutual trust between the authorities and civil society and the Tunisian people, we see that we've managed to keep this outbreak under control, and I hope that we can continue on the same path and with this same contract of mutual trust.
So this contract is hopefully going to end up with the country getting back to normal, which is currently planned for the 14th of June. Is that still the plan? Is it realistic? Or are you thinking that maybe it's a bit too soon to make that decision and you need more time to see if you have really taken control of COVID?
Well, quite clearly, we have planned an easing of the lockdown in 3 phases. We are still in the in the middle of the first phase, which will last until the 24th of May. We will continue to follow everything that we've planned. We're doing things gradually. And this is what we've always said. We've been very transparent. If things get better, we can even go faster. But if things take a turn for the worst, then there's no reason why we shouldn't backtrack. We could even impose a total lockdown again. But up until now, our predictions reflect the situation on the ground. And we're going forward, we're continuing with going along the same path, the same rhythm, using the same approach to anticipate and to ask the people. And I've always said this. I've said that the authorities in Tunisia do 30% of the work, but the rest of the work is done by the citizens, by Tunisians who do this work by respecting the rules that have been set forth by the authorities.
But there are also economic issues to take into account, and there is concerning reports coming out of a 4% recession for this year, which would be the largest recession since independence. The IMF has granted an emergency loan of $745 million, but what about other partners for Tunisia? Are they ready to loan or even give you money? I mean, this sends a clear message that maybe the loan from the IMF wasn't enough. Are you getting indications from your partners saying that they will come to your aid? And how much do you need?
I must say that the economic situation in Tunisia has been very difficult even before the coronavirus epidemic. The situation obviously has become worse. just as it has with the global economy. Everywhere in the world we're going through recession right now, and so we're working with numbers which are still not very fine-tuned.
Does this mean that the recession could actually be worse in Tunisia than expected?
It could be worse. We're trying to fine-tune these estimates for the last 3 weeks. We're trying to work on them. It won't just depend on Tunisia. You know that Tunisia is an open country. It's an exporting country. It's a country that has many partners, especially in Europe. And it's the European situation which will have an impact on growth, at least when it comes to the export drivers. But it all depends on the global economic recovery. Right now, we're in this situation. We're working with the figures that you mentioned, but we are still trying to fine-tune these figures, working on different business sectors, and we're preparing to relaunch the economy, to relaunch all business lines. And we're working on plans to finance our budget, to update it, and we're trying to see what sources of funding are available, be it on a domestic level or internationally. And up until now, we're working with our partners, be they financial institutions, international institutions, or our bilateral partners. We're working directly with them to see what's possible, what solutions can be found for this very difficult year.
Now, how much money do you need? Ideally speaking, how much money does Tunisia need in international aid?
Well, listen, we already had a budget that anticipated external funding of around 8 billion dinars, which is around 2.5 billion euros, a bit more. And I think that this figure will have to be doubled, at least when it comes to the needs that will have to be met to be able to balance the 2020 budget. Today, we are in the process, as I've already said, we're in the process of trying to see all the solutions that are available when it comes to funding our updated budget, be it at the domestic level or internationally. And our goal by mid-June is to have a clear view of the situation. I hope things will clear themselves up everywhere in the world. But of course, you know that all of this is very hypothetical, very fragile, because until we've found a cure, and you know very well that we haven't found a cure, we haven't found a vaccination, and until we've done that, we will not be shielded from a return of this epidemic after the summer or at the end of this year. So for the time being, we are trying to fine-tune these figures and to find financing sources in order to be able to relaunch our economy.
Prime Minister, we don't have much time left. I'd like to talk about politics. There is tension within your coalition, within the government. There are calls from various politicians on social media to change things up. Do you really have the support of Ennahda, or do you have the feeling that you're a bit of a moving target in Tunisia?
Well, to tell you the truth, I'm not that interested in these anecdotal stories. I'm looking at the big picture here, and what I see today is that Tunisia, with its situation, has been able to remain very level-headed in this battle against the virus. And this has borne fruit. When it comes to health, we're working on the economic support, on the social aspects and other battles. All the institutions are working together.
But do you not feel that things are a little shaky?
But you know that there's a coalition that isn't very, well, you have to follow the situation. You have to see how this government came to power after the elections last October. This coalition is quite fragile. We're talking about different schools, different political families who are working together perhaps for the very first time. And this is the challenge that I've set, to create this national unity. And I knew very well, even before the coronavirus, that there would be battles to be fought. I knew, like I said, the economic situation is very difficult in Tunisia. The last 10 years have been very difficult from an economic point of view. It's been a great success when it comes to the political transition, but we've had a fight against poverty, which is a huge challenge. And everything that I've done is that I've brought together all this national unity coalition. I'm continuing because I really want to get all the players, all the parliamentary groups together to fight this battle.
Sorry, just one last question. Do you foresee Kalb Tunis as part of the coalition?
Well, for the time being, I've been very clear about this. For the time being, I'm already trying to create cohesion within our coalition, which has a significant majority. I'm trying to create cohesion in the coalition to strengthen it. This is not something that can be done overnight. It's something that has to be done gradually. There's always tensions. And once this is done, then we might be able to open to other parties. But my goal today is to remain focused and to continue to consolidate our coalition in order to win this battle and then take up the next fight against poverty and to revitalize the Tunisian economy, to transform the Tunisian economy, something that we're lagging behind on. And we don't have time to waste time in party politics, even though that is, of course, part of the game, but we remain focused on what's essential.
Prime Minister, thank you very much for joining us for this exclusive interview on France 24. And thank you to all our viewers for joining us on France 24.
As a field reporter, you really get a sense of just how important it is to be able to go and check out things for yourselves on the ground. One example which stays in my mind is when I went up to northeastern Nigeria with my colleague Jonathan Walsh, and we wanted to do a report about the impact the Islamist group Boko Haram had left on the communities there. And we were being told by the Nigerian army for months that they had won the ground war, that the militants no longer posed a threat. And as soon as we were in the zone for ourselves, we could see that that was just clearly not the case. There were some roads that our local fixer, our producer, was absolutely terrified to take for fear of being kidnapped. We were flown out to enclaves of land by the UN by helicopter because we couldn't drive there. People were too afraid to go back to their homes a kilometre away because there was still fighting going on. And we even located one active Boko Haram member living in a refugee camp who told us he was still in regular contact with fighters out in the woods. So that really highlighted for me how important it is to go and see for yourselves what's happening and not believe what's in official statement, press releases or communiques.
Liberté, égalité, actualité.